Welcome to another edition of Bulldogs Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. It's a bye round, so there's a lot of room to talk about some really expansive topics on rugby league in general, and two of the all-time greats of the Bulldogs are here with us today, Brent Sherwin and Terry Lamb. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bill.
Cheers, right.
Now, I want to talk to you guys about a lot of things. We'll talk about the role of the halves. We'll talk about great players. So not only these guys, but the players they've played with and against. We'll talk about some of the great coaches, the great years, and the great games as well. All that's coming up in the next hour or so. But first of all, and this is pertinent to the Bulldogs right now because Cameron Ciraldo's looking to find the best combinations across the field, but particularly, of course, at the scrum base. The roles of the half and the 5/8 today. First of all, have they changed very much? We might start with you, Bar, because you go back a bit further than Shifty. So,
yeah, way back.
And some positions in rugby league have changed dramatically in recent years. Even body shapes have changed dramatically. But have the halves and 5/8 roles changed that much?
Oh, I think they have. So you look at Matt Burton, he's 6'4" or something like that. You look at the halfback, 6 foot. The body shape of all footballers have changed compared to the old days, and it's good in a way, but it's a lot quicker too, way quicker.
And what about the role they play? I mean, controlling the game, directing the team around the park, has that changed much?
It's a lot more structured, I think, these days. Work for one up for a hit up, one up for a block, one up for it, and it looks to me now whatever they've got in their head they're going to do. There's no eyes up footy, which there's a few that do it, and they're the ones that are playing Origin. So
that's an interesting point. And look, you would know that, Bar, from back in the day, because we'll talk about playing with Steve Mortimer in just a minute. But it's an interesting part of the game that a lot of people are talking about now. And certainly, how structured was it, say, back in the 80s?
Oh, well, when I started, it was 5 up for a kick. So, actually, it might have been 4 because the 6 tackle rule didn't come in until, 84 or 85 or something like that. But, yeah, they were good days. But, you learned how to tackle. You looked after each other. But the halfback was the boss. They controlled the game, and you were probably the smallest bloke on the field at that time.
Did you spend a lot of time thinking about where the team needed to be at a certain tackle? Because that's obviously part of the structure today. A lot of the plays depend upon where you are in a certain position at that time of the set.
Oh, 100%. When we were working out from our end, I had a few good halves like Ricky Stewart and Barr who coached me, and they taught me to get the play the ball to the left, a right foot kicker. I'm in the middle. I've got the whole field to pick where I want to put the ball. If I've got to play the ball down the middle, I'm down a right side corridor, which if the fullback and the winger's back, there's no grass I can find. So that's what I tried to do, get the forwards to the left. Not always happen, but if I needed to get there, I'd get in and a quick 2-pass to get it where I wanted it.
That's why I don't understand with today's game. Everybody wants to put spiral bombs up, and I know they can kick a ball, but they put up, and most of the fullbacks and wingers can catch a ball now.
Yeah.
So the old days, experimental was with a winger or fullback. If they couldn't catch, they couldn't catch. So, but these days they all can do that.
You started as a halfback at West. Did you?
No, I was a 5'8". Alan Neal was at West when I started. Yeah,
but you did play halfback at West.
Yeah,
at
I
some
did.
Stage.
I played halfback at junior football.
Yeah, right.
And
did that, was that something you aspired to do? Did it matter changing to 6?
No, it didn't worry me.
Yeah.
Well, they probably put me at 6 because I played 6 in Jersey Flag. So you need a smart halfback to control the team, where to go and everything. And I wasn't a talker at them days. So, I just followed everybody around and looked after him, I suppose.
He was a good player, Alan Neal. What was he like to play with?
Yeah, he's a good man. I've seen him on the weekend. I was at Lickham Oval.
Oh, he's still hanging out with him?
Yeah. Not really, but I did see him in a distance. He probably keeps away from the younger blokes.
And well, you played a few positions, actually. We'll get onto that in a minute, because in the 98 reserve grade grand final, it was quite a different situation for you, Shifty. But you got your chance to play first grade when Ricky Stewart was injured. Yep. We'll talk about your relationship with Barr in a minute, because there was a pivotal one in that 96 year. But you played a full season in 2000 outside Ricky at 6. So I'll ask you the same question. Did you have a particular role that you thought was yours, or were you happy to play either?
No, I just wanted to be out there.
Yeah.
So they gave me number 6, and I go, all right, no worries, I'll take it with both hands. So.
And Ricky was a cranky man too. So
yeah, I just waited for him to say, "Shifty, the ball's coming," and I was just ready for it. And then he always told me, keep taking the line on. If you don't take the line on, and then your passing game will never come to like fruition. So if you just pass, they'll just slide off you.
There's the theory, of course, that, if you're a passer, you play 7. If you're more of a runner, you play 6. But is that really set in stone? I don't know. My memory might be a bit weak now, but going back to the 70s and 80s, I thought it was a bit more versatile than that. How was it for you? First of all, Bar, going back a bit further?
Yeah, I don't think about that too much. If you've got a talker and someone that can play with a ball, you want them to be 7, so they're structured more than natural players are. So I just played my natural game, and I was a good runner of the ball, a bit of pace, and scored a few tries.
You sure did. What about you, Shifty? Did you find, as you said, did you learn more about your passing game playing outside Ricky? Is that what you're saying?
I think I did. I just watched him. He didn't muck around when he had the ball at halfback. He just, if it was coming to me, he just took one step, bang, and fired it. So then I had plenty of time with the ball to have a look, see what the defence is doing. If they're coming at me, I'll feed it on. And if they wait back, I'd go at them with, I think I had Glenn Hughes outside me and Bradley Clyde, I think, and Rod Silver out the back. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And of course, back in those days, the transition between rugby league and rugby union has been going on forever. But Ricky really did have an exceptional passing game, which came from his rugby skills, obviously. It was
and the kicking game was great too,
Yeah.
He could kick a ball for a small man.
Yeah, that was great to watch firsthand, and that's what it got me like wanting to do the kicking. So when he retired, I was just like, that's going to be me. So I'd practiced, and I don't think today they practice enough.
Really?
So that's mine. If we used to get flogged out here on the ground, I'd be still out there for 40 minutes, an hour after it, and no one ever told me to come inside. So until I was ready to come in, I came in.
And what did you do? What sort of kicking? Like grubbers, chips, everything?
Well, if I was lucky enough, I'd always get Haz in general for about half hour. I could never get Matty. He'd give me about 5. He'd give me about 5 minutes. He'd take 5 bombs and he'd go, I'm done shifting. And I was like, but no, General was amazing, and Hazem was amazing as well. They wanted to practice. So we used to practice grubbers, kicks to the corner, the long stuff, so General could sweep around and try and get it on the bounce, and how he'd attack the ball. And it made me a better kicker because I did so much. So, and I think that's a bit lacking these days.
Now, we talked about Alan Neal. Steve Mortimer. What was it like coming to the Bulldogs and playing with Turvey? Well,
I remember the day he asked me to come here and to play. He made a break down the field at Lidcombe Oval, and I've come across and hit him a little bit high around the mouth and that, and split his lip open. After the game, he's walked up to me and he's spitting blood at me. He said, will you play for the Bulldogs with me? And I thought that was fantastic because I've just belted this bloke. And it was incredible. And that's why I played for the Bulldogs. It wasn't because of the money or anything. It was because he asked me, and I thought it was incredible.
And I must say...
mate, we're best mates. We're seriously best mates.
And Shifty, you must have watched that, obviously, growing up. To some degree anyway, you would know about it. Yeah. And because you did come your last year, Bar, you were coming through the grades, weren't you, 96?
Yeah.
But that must have been something special to watch those two blokes playing together back in the day, or to know about that legacy.
Yeah, no, 100%. Used to come here to Belmore with mum and dad, and my uncle played lower grades as well. And yeah, just the buzz around the ground and just watching those two go at it. And yeah, it was always good growing up watching that. With my Newtown jersey I had on. But
they couldn't afford a Canterbury.
No, I didn't have a Bulldogs. The other two brothers did, but I got the Newtown. That's the only one that fit me.
Well, there were a few Newtown Bulldogs connections. Ask Gus Gould about that.
Yeah.
Now, but the other thing, bar two, was that with Turvey, I don't think a lot of Dogs fans, particularly the younger ones, would understand there was that relationship that started even before you played together. And that must have, I don't know, to have that friendship and be playing together, that's a pretty rare thing. I mean, a lot of blokes are very good at working together, even though they might not be compatible. They might go separate ways socially. But, gee, that must have been special.
Well, I was a new bloke in town, so I think there was me, Tunks, Kelly, maybe one other player that came into the team. So we're new. So we got to mix with the team. So we got to get on with them. And it was quite easy because we were a successful. They were a successful team in the early 80s. So we just took over that with Warren Ryan as a new coach as well. And, Wok, when he spoke, you listened because he was a school teacher. And he meant what he said. There was no bullshit in him. So can I swear? Or?
We'll find out.
There's no bullshit in him. And, it was do it his way or no way.
Yeah. And we'll elaborate more on that later in the show because I want to talk about coaching styles as well. But getting back to trying to get the right transition line up because, obviously this club and others in different times have been in a rebuilding phase. So how important was it to have a senior playmaker in the rebuild? You played with Ricky Stewart. He was here a relatively short time, but he bridged that gap and we got this bloke out of that period of time, which turned out to be a terrific transition for the club. Ricky didn't win a title with us, but he and Brad Clyde did an amazing job in the period they were here.
You've got to remember they come over in the Super League time, so they probably didn't have money for them to, and so we took them. But I think it was great for Shifty to get Ricky. But Turvey was the same with me. So when I wanted the ball, Turvey would step, do this, that, and then give me the ball, and I'd get belted by the opposition. So I had to say to him, mate, just either give it to me or you run. Make a decision. Yeah. So, but he was great with that, Turf.
Yep. What about you, mate? And we'll get onto your relationship. Well, who would be the first 5'8"? Was it Braith or who was before Braith? Because you played in the 98, but you're on the wing in 98. But
yeah, no, I was on the wing. No, it would have been Braith.
Would have been Braith first up. Yeah.
So I got moved to. Actually, I got injured in 01. So I actually was coming off the bench. Folks, I was playing 5'8" half and hooker, and then 2002, I think I didn't play the first game, and then I ended up getting the half then, and Braith was there, and then we went on that 17 straight run.
We'll talk about that too a little later in the show. It was quite amazing. And how was that combination?
That was good.
Because he was relatively young then too. Remember he had that amazing first year.
Yes.
An amazing breakout year.
And they could both kick, these two. Braith was a huge kicker of the ball as well.
Yeah.
But they could both kick and control the game.
Yeah, no, he was good. He listened as well. So, like, we bounced ideas off each other, which helped. And so every time in defence, we'd always swap and would be just a little, like a nod, and we'd just swap sides so they couldn't find me because they were always running at me. But, coming out of our end, we took turns, and then down our end, he loved chasing them. And they say Haslam's the best chaser, but I tell you what, Braith was up there too.
Speaking of Haslam, he and a number of other players have said to me that they just love playing outside you, whether it was Luke, Haslam, all those guys, Matty, Rod Silver. But as a halfback, you must have been very aware of where they all were. How does that work? Because Bar was talking about, his passing exchange between him and Turvey. We'll get on to the outside backs in a minute. But what were you like? Because Has felt like you knew where he was at all times. I know he's on the wing, but you know what I mean. If he wants to come inside, you're going to find him. You're going to put him through a hole.
Yeah, I don't know. I always had my eyes up to watch what the defence is doing, and I just had faith in where my players would be, and I knew roughly where they'd be, and then. Like Haslam would put his hand down for a grubber like every set, but I trusted him.
Yeah.
And
came off.
The kicks aren't as good as his chaser, and he was the best. But Rocket, I don't know how Rocket did it. He just turned up in the right spot and he just shift, and I pop it. He's off, gone. So I remember that try, Robert Ralph.
He flicked him out the back. Oh,
against Parramatta,
incredible.
There was nothing on.
Yep.
Ralphie had 3 on him. And then you just see Ralphie's arm come out, and Rocket comes from nowhere at 100 miles an hour, and I just stood up and clapped. And I said, "That's great footy."
Did Rod Silver learn that from you?
No, not for me. No way in the world.
You were doing that when you were playing.
Yeah, but
you're everywhere.
Yeah, but you got to read your players. You got to know how your players play. I know when I came here that I knew what Andrew Farrell could do, left off, right foot, whichever. Chris Mortimer. And they were very aggressive players as well. They just try to run over the top of these blokes. But Mitch Newton was a great ball player who popped the ball around the body of people and everything like that. So you got to learn what your players can do and their strengths.
And then that helps with the instinct, I suppose, of being in the right place. Before we finish off this and go to In the Sheds, how important, I know it's the oldest conversation in the world, but often halves get criticised, but how important are the forwards? What do you need from your forwards in a game just to do what you need to do?
Trust. They've got to trust you. You tell them where to go, ask them where to go, and they'll do anything for you. So you just need, that's mine.
Yep.
Just need trust, I think.
Yeah, like Lordy, they back you up. So I used to back them up.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. You got to try and just work with them. Ask them how they want the ball. They want it early. They want it late. They want it, however they want it. You try and do that and try and put into a performance.
Brent Sherwin, Terry Lamb, Unleashed. We'll hit the sheds when we come back.
Betting takes you away from the action. It can distract you from footy's most exciting moments. Don't let a bet take you away from the match. Reclaim the game. Be gamble aware.
Let's go in the sheds.
This is Bulldogs Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. And this week we have Terry Lamb and Brent Sherwin in the house. We've talked about the halves. Let's go in the sheds and talk about their roles with the Bulldogs. It's a little bit different, of course. Shifty's got his own role, his own work, but Bar, of course, is full-time ambassador for the Bulldogs. Bar, we did touch on this before, and we joked about you being the minister for having a good time. But you do a lot of things out in the community and with sponsors and everything. So give us an idea. It's a fairly busy week because I tried to get you on the live show at the Parramatta against Parramatta at Accor Stadium, and you were too busy. So there's a fairly big role there, isn't there?
Well, it's looking after our corporate sponsors, mainly on game day. I'm in Arthur Laundry's box looking after Arthur, so he's got the cash. So we look after the big man. And man, he's been a friend of mine since I was 16 years old.
Really?
Yeah. I walked down the pub one day. We got kicked out of Chester Hill pub and walked down the Willows, and I met him when I was 16.
So that relationship went back way before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before I was playing footy. Yeah. And then we started playing with Chester Hill and a few mates of mine used to live around the area. And I said, Arthur, how did you sell me that beer? He said, I needed the money. And he's got plenty right now.
I was going to say, not anymore.
No, but, that's how your relationships get going, You remember people and all that kind of stuff.
And Shifty, of course, you work at the Wharves. We've had Cement Gillespie on the show. He works on the Wharves as well. But before that, you had a trucking business, but you still do some work with the Dogs. You've been invited a few times to come in and have a chat with the halves. And tell us some of the things you say to them. It must be difficult because you're coming into a situation where you might not have a clear idea of what's needed or what the kids think they need. How does it work?
Yeah, it is quite difficult. Kicking was my strength, so that's what I go do straight away. And I always seem in a game, if my kicking game was on, I was on,
right.
And everything kind of fed off that. So I just try and teach them the proper way to kick. They're not going to kick like me, and they're not going to kick like Terry. I'm going to teach them the right structure, how to do it. And I said, you find your own groove, and then we start working out where you need to be on the field for the right type of kick, and when not to kick and stuff like that. So that's what I kind of try to start with, and then the running game, you just got to look up. You got to keep your eyes open and have a look at what the defence is doing. I know it's hard. Like they're trying to teach me to teach the young kids how to play eyes up footy, but when they're coming through, getting told do the block, do the cross, it's hard. So But
And that's right through the juniors, isn't it? That sort of thing?
Yes.
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've already got a lot of that stuff in their head before.
Well, you got to do the cross and the block, but you got to pick your players who you do it with. If that bloke comes in all the time,
Yep.
well, you do it to that bloke who comes in all the time and pop him outside. So it's just got to do it in the right people.
And I guess that's the other difficult thing too, is every player is an individual. And at the moment, there's all this talk about there, for obvious reasons, because as we go to air, of course, Ben Hunt is one of the prize signings in rugby league, wanting to leave the Dragons. We don't know if that's going to happen yet, but as the time we're talking about it, that's where it is. But the reason for that is because at the moment there's this perception there's not a lot of great halfbacks around there. So do you start asking the question, are we teaching the young players to be creative, to be tactically dominant when they go out there and play, or are they too shy to do that?
I think we've got plenty of halfbacks out there, but we haven't got the experienced ones.
Right.
And they're all rolled up. Hopefully Benny Hunt comes off contract, and hopefully St George give him a release, and hopefully we can pick him up. But other than that, there's no one out there.
Is that because we're not training him, or is it just the way the game goes? Sometimes you don't have a lot of great halfbacks, and sometimes you do. Because I know you guys played a lot against a lot of great players, which we'll talk about later.
yeah, I think that's like when I was growing up, Joey was there. There was Brett Kamali, Matt Orf. There was some great halves, but now there's only a handful. So it's just the times, I guess.
Yeah, there's some good halves coming through, but they're not that Ben Hunt halfback at this stage. And Cherry Evans, for example.
Are they encouraged to be creative? Is there too much structure?
I think there is. I think whatever they got in their head, if they're doing, like I said, a cross or a block, and no matter what the defence does, they do whatever they've got in their head, or they run into the line and I'm going to throw a long ball before they've even got to the defence where the winger hasn't come in. He's stayed out and it ends up behind under the sticks at the other end. So you got to wait for those hook centres and wingers to bite or slide out, and that's when you got to play the different. Like with the block, you got the lead, you got the out the back, and you got to see what the defence does to who gets the ball. So that's
And all centres and wingers have got weaknesses, either to jam in or to push out. So that everybody's got a weakness in some position.
I guess we should say too, in terms of rules, the game's a little bit different now than what it was even in your day, Shifty. So I suppose, like for example, the block play, the obstruction rules have changed over time. You know, they've evolved. So all those things do evolve. There's no doubt about that. But generally speaking, how do you find training these days? I mean, I'm not just talking about the Bulldogs here. I mean, across the board, compared to your day, how much information do the players have to digest?
There's a lot. I was a bit shocked when I came back. They've got names for everything, and I was sitting there just going, Jesus, I need a like the NFL. I need a sheet. Like, they were throwing them out, but it's what it is now. So
yeah. And Bar, I know we did touch on this before when you had your coaching term at West, West Tigers, but the you have had assistant coaching roles and coaching roles here. We'll talk about 98 later, but
listen,
how different has it been for you?
I had a great team. You know, we very rarely had injuries in first grade, and I just got the blokes that Folksy gave me, and they were first grade footballers playing in reserve grade, so I got very lucky. And
how do you find the coaching now? Is it much more complicated?
Oh, absolutely it is, very much. There's a lot of time in it now, and I don't think I could handle it's firstly 24/7, really.
Yeah,
with these footballers now.
And look, it's a kind of a tricky subject, but we have talked on the show previously about the differences in generations too, and the way young people are taught these days. The football club now, and I'm talking all the codes, had never before been referred to as a workplace. Now it is officially a workplace, and there are very good reasons for that. But with that also comes cultural differences that you guys would not have experienced in terms of the way players are treated, the way they're spoken to. So when you're talking to teenagers these days, again, have you noticed how different? And this is no disrespect or comment or judgment on the young players today at all. It's just the way things are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite different. We had a bloke, Gary Carden, and he was one of the best trained, like best blokes you'll meet, and if you got him on your side, you're going all right. And he'd filter out the different types of people, but I think he tried to come back a little while ago, and he struggled a little bit because he wasn't allowed to
call them certain names.
Yeah,
right.
It wasn't an attack on him, on the player. It was just he's trying to get the best out of him.
Yeah.
Like, keep going. You got 2 more reps. Keep going. Come on, you. And he'd get into you. And if I didn't have him, I reckon there's probably 30, 40 people that wouldn't have played first grade.
And one of them was Sonny Bill Williams, who he came through, and his first session he couldn't squat anything, and Gaz has given it to him, calling him names and the whole lot, and he made him successful. Gaz made him successful.
Well, Willie Mason and Ryan O'Hara, I remember were out the back, and they got signed from Hunter Mariners, and they came down and we were doing around the cricket pitch, and we had to do 1, 2, 3, 400, back down, and then back up. I think they got to 300 and they went, no, I'm done. And they went inside, and Gary was just spraying them, and I was it was an initiation, the best initiation I've ever seen.
And look, it must be said too that there were probably young people in those days who might have needed to be treated differently, and maybe they would have had careers if they hadn't been, abused or whatever the terminology would be.
Absolutely.
But that said, it's, I suppose you've got to be open-minded about these things. But gee, it has changed a lot.
Yeah, too much, too much, too quick, I think. But it's our life now. It's part of it. So it's not just rugby league. It's all things now. Even at schools and things, no one gets a cane anymore and things like that.
It's a different situation. And look, the other thing that sort of evolves from that too, and again, it's part of the whole Ben Hunt story and many others that have come before it, is the whole notion of loyalty. And do you think really, from my perspective, it seems to be still fairly balanced in that both clubs and players and managers have all shown plenty of disloyalty and loyalty over the years, and I can't really say. Some punters have different views. They think clubs are more disloyal than players and vice versa. But I don't know. It cuts both ways, doesn't it? Was it any different back in your day? I mean, especially when it was semi-professional. Was loyalty as big as it is now? Was it as frivolous as it is?
I think it was bigger then.
Bigger?
Because you got friends on the field who are your mates. They've got to be your mates.
Yeah.
If you don't go in battle without your friends. And listen, I loved all of them. Everyone I played with, especially at Western Suburbs when I first started, John Donnelly and Bruce Gibbs and all them guys.
Great team too.
Absolutely,
yeah. They were tough blokes.
Yeah, and then you come here, and I played here for 13 years, and seen all these young kids come through the way they played football, and everybody had different personalities, and you had to treat them that way. Some people didn't drink, some people did drink, probably too much sometimes. But that's part of everybody's life. And I would never give whatever I've done up at all. I loved it.
Is there anything you can do, Shifty, these days to try and recreate that? Because there are so many forces now pulling in other directions, aren't there? Mainly money.
Well, yeah.
And look, with great respect to player agents, they also have a role in all of this. They're trying to get the best dollars for their clients, and that also is a factor.
I'm not sure. You got to be happy where you play. Like, I love coming to Belmore, and I never wanted to go anywhere else. And I went. The other contract that I signed was to go to England. So I could have left a few times, and I just went. I don't want to. This is my second home. I was 15 when I started, and I was 29 when I left. I was here 14 years. So.
Don't put a dollar figure on it. You don't have to, and it's irrelevant these days anyway. But what was it worth to you? In other words, how much, put it in percentage terms maybe, how much money would a club have to pay you to get you away from Belmore back in those days? 50% more, 40%? I don't know. What?
Yeah, probably about 50% more.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of money relatively.
Shift,
yeah.
But you didn't want to leave.
Nah.
See, today it would be maybe 10% more for some people.
Could be.
Well, that's
Could be 100% more too for some people as well. But if it depends if you're happy at a place.
Yeah.
I remember signing here in '84. and I signed 4-year deals, and my 8th year come up, and Bullfrog gave me a job upstairs. So I wasn't going anywhere. So I became very, very good friends with Bullfrog, and especially when he was very sick. And Barry Nelson was a good mate of ours. Used to eat Chinese up the Lees Club all the time with him. But that's the relationship you have with your friends and your bosses.
A big money spinner for me was I played with these guys for so long, coming through like 19s, 20s, reserve grade. And then I think I was about 24 when I signed the 5-year, and I was just like, we're going to win a comp. And I had that in my head, and I went, we're going to win a comp. I'm not going anywhere. And I did it the first year. And I said, well, you can't take that off me.
Yeah.
That's another good point, Shifty, and it is discussed a lot even today with players. And it's even been referred to with Benny Hunt too. He wants to go somewhere and win a comp. But I don't know how true that is, but that's some of the speculation. How important was that, though, to players, even back in your days? Was it that big a deal to have to go to a winning club? Because a lot of great players didn't win comps.
Yeah. A lot of the Parramatta or Balmain players mostly.
Wayne Pearce springs to mind, yeah.
I think everybody wants to. Well, you need to come in to a team wanting to be the best player you want to be and to win a competition. And I hadn't won a competition in my life until I got here, and that's how I knew where I was. I didn't want to leave it because they gave me a competition, and the players around me gave it to me. So it's special.
That's the other thing too. I just wanted to touch on, because we spoke at length last week with Craig Sandercock on the show about coaching and all the different nuances of coaching. What makes a good coach? How hard is it to be a good coach? And all the different components you need to be a good coach. But one thing that bugs me sometimes is you hear this constant thing about, well, I don't know about this coach because the players just won't play for him. They won't do this, they won't do that. And I always think, well, I get that in one sense, because you hear about the great coaches and players saying they want to play for them. But on the other hand, what happened to playing for yourself and your teammates? What happened to playing to be, as you just said, the very best player you can be every week, to try and be a little bit better than the week before, and to just be able to walk away with the fans knowing that you gave it everything and that you didn't have a bad game? What happened to that as a motivation for playing?
Well, that's the trophy at the end was my motivation every time I went on the field. Folksy used to, even Bar when he was coaching me, they gave me the right tools and just said, stick to a little bit of structure, but don't go crazy with doing chip kicks on the first tackle again. So, fair enough.
I don't remember you doing that.
I did that once. I did that once, and then I was against the Roosters, and they scored. And then I didn't see the video, but later on I seen it, and Focus, he was blowing up. But then I went back down. I did a grubber. I raked the ball off Adrian Morley, and then I think we did one hit up, and on the first tackle I did a grubber, and Jonathan Thurston scored. And he goes, I was going to kill you, but then I was going to kiss you. And he goes, I'm a bit torn.
Is that, we talk about teams defending errors and individuals. You love that, don't you, when you see a bloke or a woman make a mistake on the footy field, and then you can see them just hungrily chasing back to make up for what happened and somehow compensate.
You can't compensate.
I suppose once it's gone, hasn't it?
It's gone, but you still got to make up for it, and you do it the way you know how to do it.
Yeah, and not get out of position doing it, I suppose, and all that sort of thing.
Don't chip over the top.
Don't chip over the top trying to make up for it. Brent Sherwin, Terry Lamb, revealing some of these great secrets. When we come back, we'll get back to the dog days.
Let's talk about the dog days.
This is Bulldogs Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. We have Terry Lamb and Brent Sherwin at the table, and we're going now back to the dog days. We've done a bit of that already, I admit, but we're going to go further back now because Bar was a Dally M Player of the Year in a wooden spoon side before he even got to the Bulldogs. Tell us about that year. And did that, I know you've told this lovely story about Turvey approaching you after you tackled him in a game and asking you to play for the Dogs, but at that point, Dally M Player of the Year for West, they had some good players in that side, and they were, arguably building towards something. What other motivations were there when you moved to the Dogs?
Probably shortest man on the field, like usual. I just wanted to be the best player, so I played 6 under-23 games Peter Rolls broke his leg. I went from 23s to second grade. Then Peter Rolls broke his arm, and I went in 2 weeks. I went to first grade, and got a relationship with Alan Neal, John Donnelly, who I love.
Yeah,
God bless him. And the people around me were, they were just knockabouts, all, bricklayers, truck drivers, electricians, all normal workers and everything like that. And that's how it was them days. But I just got on with everybody. And Roy Masters is still a good friend of mine too, because, and it was the old days when you slapped each other in the face and then went out in the field and punched the shit out of everybody.
Were you in that famous video?
That was year before.
Year before.
That was 79.
That was when it all sort of came out,
Yes.
wasn't it? And
Yep.
the whole world was shocked.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Players slapping each other in the dressing room before the game, if you hadn't noticed or heard of that story. But it was very much part of the Masters sort of doctrine. He had the whole, hate the Silvertails at Manly thing going and all that stuff. It's kind of funny now when you think about it, isn't it? Manly being the Silvertails back in those days. The world's changed a lot. Manly certainly isn't that kind of club these days, as much as people still want to hate them. But you joined the Dogs in 84. And we talked about your relationship with Turvey, but what about Warren Ryan? You touched on it, but tell us more about what it was like playing for him in your first season.
Yeah, the Wok, we used to call him. He was a person who needed respect, and we all gave him respect because he did play rugby league as a young kid. Very smart man, and wanted the best of everybody. And he got that at times. And he put that team together in 84. When Parramatta were on a roll, 3 in a row, and he put the team together. Got on with Peter Moore and Punchy, who was our chairman. So them days with Wok, I was a bit of a smart aleck at times, and
I
I
can't imagine.
I'd be a smart ass now and again. But I think me and Turvey's relationship was great. Chris Mortimer was on one side and Andrew Farrell was on another side of the field, and they'd have competitions who would bash their centre worse than the other, and it was incredible. But that's what they did.
Yeah.
They did that to motivate each other and everything.
Yeah.
So we had Robbo as well. So we had a great team, and Buggo.
Mark Bugden.
Mark Bugden,
Great
yeah.
hooker. Yeah.
Great hooker, maniac. I thought Dallas was bad.
Wasn't he a police officer at one
He was,
stage?
yes. Barry Nelson helped him with being a policeman. A very strange policeman he would have been.
I have to ask, because we didn't get a chance to talk to you at the stadium when the I Forgive Cup was on. So the rivalry for Parramatta, it was interesting, wasn't it, that we won in 1980 and things were all looking really good. And even in 81, the team under Teddy Glossop was still very competitive. But just was it the Jack Gibson Parramatta dominance that basically forced Punchy and Bullfrog to reinvent the Bulldogs? I don't know. Or was it just a natural evolution?
I think Gary Hughes was getting a bit older at the time, and he had one year to go when I got to the club. So he played reserve grade. I just think the club needed a turnaround more than anything. I don't know how many years the coach. What was the coach's name?
Ted Glossop.
Ted Glossop.
Yeah.
He was there for about 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So they needed a revamp, and the entertainers were out, and the Bulldogs, the Bulldogs, what do they call them? Dogs of War.
Yeah.
Maybe came back in then.
It changed very quickly, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you got to remember Dave Gillespie, young bloke coming through, Langmack coming through, Andrew Farrell's a young bloke, so was Chris Mortimer. So we had and Bugger, Peter Kelly as well, and Peter Tunk. So we had a pack there that could be very aggressive.
it was a very tough team.
Well,
As a fan,
them days we had to fight, right? Everybody had to fight, right? So that's the only situation that we were in.
as a fan back in the early 80s, I worked in a radio newsroom, and there was another couple of guys in the newsroom around that time that were also Bulldogs fans. We used to cop stick from all the other people in the newsroom because our football club was so tough and brutal. And, you guys are dirty and blah. Even back in the early 80s, I was quite surprised. And we all just said, well, we're winning, so what can I say? Shifty, that rivalry with Parramatta, I mentioned last week that it it's one of the perennial ones. It doesn't matter where the two clubs are on the ladder. It is one of those rivalries that never dies down. It's on fire all the time. What was it like in your day, the rivalry with Parramatta?
Oh, I love playing Barra.
Because around that early 2000s, remember, that was the grand final they couldn't possibly lose and lost to Newcastle. So around that time, they were very strong.
Oh, they were a great side. They had Hindy and the Kalis brothers and couple of Tim Smith was there. But they, all across the board. Yeah. Oh, that was a bit.
He was a bit later.
He was
in the 09.
But thanks for thinking I was around then.
Yeah, thanks.
So no, they just had a great side from 1 to 17. They were a great side, and I used to love the competition. Like, you knew, all right, I'm going to have to be on my game here, or they're going to towel us up, and that's what motivated me and got me focused. And yeah, I used to love playing at Para Stadium. That was amazing.
Now, you joined the Bulldogs in 1996. The year after they won the grand final. That was also Bar's retirement year. Where were you? What were you doing in '96? And did you have much to do? I know you're in lower grades, but what did you have much to do with Bar? Did you? Because I don't think you remember him playing. Do you?
No,
I think I was
after us.
Yeah, I think I was SG ball or something like that.
Right.
I was only I think I was 16 then or 17. So
20 years difference.
Yeah.
Jeez, that was good of you.
A couple of years
How about that?
Couple of years later, he was coaching you, of course.
Yeah.
But
no, we used to
that
just
was the
watch
one
him.
kind of point of contact. So, what did you learn from this bloke? Is what I'm getting.
Just
at.
watching him. He was a competitor. He didn't stop and supported all his forwards. If they made a mistake, he'd pick them up and pat them on the back and say, all right, I need something more from you, and get into it. And he just never stopped. So, and one of the best support players ever to play the game, I reckon.
Did you try and be as funny as him?
Nah. Cheeky, but that's about it.
Yeah, I wasn't funny. I was a smart ass.
Well, okay. Here's a question: do halfbacks and 5'8" have to be cheeky? Does that come with the territory? And if they're not, are you suspicious of them?
Well, I don't think I was a smart aleck when I was younger, but when I got older, and I had Peter Tunks next to me or
I was going to
Peter
say,
Kelly.
Does the level of cheekiness depend on who's playing around you?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
absolutely. Jared McCracken, for example. Yeah.
Playing under Chris Anderson. What was that like?
Yeah, he's a family club. That's virtually when it started, the family club. Bullfrog. Folksy was there with Karen and Lynn. Kevin Moore was playing with us at the time. So there was a real connection there with everybody. We had the Mortimers as well. Then we had the Hugheses before that. So Glenn, Stephen and Corey all played around because I played with Glenn. I think I might have had a couple of games with Stephen. I'm not sure. And I missed out on Corey. But, everybody came through at the different times and we really got on well together.
Glenn, Stephen and Corey, by the way, are going to come on and do a show, just the three of them. We'll have a lot of fun with that. And they can bag their dad, who was very generous and very kind and nice when he came on the show, so they want to be careful. Anyway, you won reserve grade in 1998, coached by this bloke. So what was that like there? You were forming as a player. You played on the wing in the grand final, or for how many games that season? All season, or just that one game?
I think about 10 rounds, something like that. So,
he was only there for goal kicking. That's what I said to him. I said, mate, you could just jump on the wing, do the best you can, and you're going to be the best goal kicker in the competition. But what he did do, he played like a wing too. He didn't go in there and try to organise anything too much. Who was our halfback?
Duncan McRae,
yeah.
Good player, yeah.
Bar would give me 10 minutes at the end if we're up by a bit, and just slowly got me talking like with the big boys. And then he did say, I don't know if he remembers, but he did say, I'll give you the first shot at reserve grade next year at half, because Duncan was going to the Waratahs.
Oh, yeah.
So he said, we've got no one. It's your job first if you can hold on to it. And
He did.
yeah, I did. And I think 8 games later I played first grade. So if Bar didn't give me that opportunity and I didn't worry about wearing the number 2 on me back, because I did my apprenticeship. I did it on the wing.
Yep.
Then I played a bit of reserve grade and then started first grade. And if I didn't suck it up and just have a go, where would I be?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess that tells you need to have a bit of faith. We talked about loyalty before. You need to have a bit of loyalty and faith in your coaching staff and your mentors, don't you, to suck up that time on the wing, however, whatever it meant to you at the time, with the view to, yes, you're doing this for us now, we'll look after you in the future because you've got faith in him as a player and you've got faith in him as a coach.
Shifty was a great ball player,
Hmm.
and he used to love the long ball. You loved the long ball. And a couple of times intercepts came through, but he got down on it, but you just had to pick him up. And the players did that. They knew how good a player he was, but the players did that themselves, picked him up.
Brett Camorley famously threw one in a great career in a State of Origin game. Now, lots of things happen in big games. The bloke we've been talking about, Ben Hunt, dropped a ball in the grand final. All those things. The greatest players have these things happen at time to time. How do you get over that stuff?
Well, I just tried to take about 5 or 6 steps and just go, all right, kicking's what I go to. I said the next five kicks I'm going to do spot on. And I'll try and get a 40-20, something like that. I've got to turn my team around. So, and every kick I did, I try and chase. So, and usually when they see the halfback sprinting down, they go, oh, shit, I better chase him. So, but for some reason, my wingers and centres were always up flat with me because I'd hit them with a short, like a flat one, where if I kicked it into the corner early, they were already going. So we just had a good combination, and I just run straight down the field to the post and heard the fullback straight into me centre because I didn't want to tackle him. So, and then I'd just run back, and then all our forwards would come down, and they'd be on the move as they play the ball. And you got Ogre, you got Bobcat, you got Tony Grimaldi, Ashley just bashing people. So,
but there was a method to it. That's the thing. You didn't just sit there and kid to yourself, I've got to do better, I'll do this, I'll do that. There was a method to it. There was a physical method, a physical approach to overcoming an error.
You play with your strengths. That's what you do. And Shifty's strengths with kicking and passing, plus his strengths also was his players around him that read him all the time.
What was it like playing under Steve Folkes?
great. I think 9 or 10 years. Yeah, no, he was good. He was really relaxed. Like if you were playing well, he'd have a joke with you and muck around with you. If you were playing crap, he'd let you know about it, and that's how folksy was.
Yeah.
So every now and again he'd come up and he'd give me a couple of tips and that, and just keep going, you're going well, and that's all I needed. I knew he had my back, and he was a good coach.
It didn't surprise me, bar when Folkesy went into physical trainer after his playing career.
Yep.
Did you see him as a coach though?
No,
because
I
he was
didn't.
always the fittest bloke on the field.
No,
but
he's always a smart. Folkesy didn't have to say a lot, and what he said was very important, and it either hurt you or helped you. And he was a tremendous person, Stephen. Very loyal to everybody. Everybody took under his arm, and he treated these kids as virtually sons. How he coached them, and for a long time too.
Do you remember? You won't remember this, but when I did a TV story once with you and Folkesy about diet, because around that time, I can't remember when it was, but Folkesy was coaching, but around that time, dietitians were starting to become a bit of a thing in rugby league. So we did a story in diet, which went to air on TV, and I remember the three of us walking out of this restaurant saying, we just got a free feed. Anyway.
Did we eat?
Yeah, we had a full meal, and the restaurant put it up for us.
Where was that at?
I can't remember. I can't remember
The restaurant.
where it was.
You can't remember the restaurant?
No, I can't. It was somewhere in the city.
Oh, okay.
And they put it up for us, so we'd do the story at their restaurant, but we didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of a legitimate story, but we all walked out
Third
saying
party.
There was a free feed. That was good. Anyway, not to mention the golf days and things like that. Tell us about the bike rides. Now, we've touched on this in previous episodes, the folks' bike rides.
Yeah.
I don't think people really understand when you say that you have to ride from Sydney to Canberra?
Yeah, no.
Or from Canberra to Sydney? Can you explain how that comes about? And
I was in that group.
And in Newcastle.
and in Newcastle.
And back. Oh, it was incredible. Like,
Yeah.
What was the response when he first suggested this? And
as a kid, I never had a bike in my life. The only bike I had was someone else's, right?
that you borrowed.
I'd borrowed and maybe gave back, right? But this folksy said, okay, I think when Bobby Cooper resigned and folksy took over, he was relentless about bike riding, and we would meet here, go to Campbelltown, maybe a little bit further. This is when we first started.
Brooks Road.
And then back again. And the freeway was just opening at the same time. So it was awful. I would have been 50 metres behind everybody else, maybe longer. I was dreadful. I couldn't ride a bike.
What about you?
My second ride ever. Actually, I'll start my week. He's coming to me. It was 2000 on the Monday. He goes, "Shifty, go get a bike." I was like, "All right, what kind of bike?" And he went, "Nah." Shook his head and he said, "Go to, I think it was Endeavour at Gymea." He had a bike for me. On the Wednesday, I rode to Brooks Road and back, 70 Ks. I was like, and he goes, "We're going to Canberra on Friday." And I was like, "What?" Because we're riding to Canberra. I was like, "Oh, righto. What time do you want to see?" And there was 11 of us. There was Dave Thompson, Steve Hughes, Billy.
Yeah.
And then we just set off on our trek, and I think we got to 140 Ks, and there's this one hill. It's only about an hour into the drive, but it took us 4 hours to get there, and it goes up, and it just continues and continues, and we seen the bus go past, and that's where they stopped, right at the top of that hill. I had a brand new bike. I shot it straight in the trailer, and I said, "I don't want to see that bike ever again."
Yeah, it was ordinary.
Oh,
I'd run anywhere, but with not a bike. Didn't Stephen Hughes fall off his bike and do his knee or something?
Yeah. No, that was near the toll gates.
Okay.
Glenn was in front of him. He was usually you throw the hand out if there's a brick or something, and Glenn didn't, and Steve hit it. He went over, hit the guardrail, and ripped his knee open.
Yeah.
On the guardrail, and I think that was.
I think he was just coming back from a knee injury too.
I think it was his last week of bike riding. So you actually didn't want to get injured, so you didn't see Gary Hughes or the bike.
Yes.
Not Gary Hughes, Gary Carden.
Yeah.
Didn't want to see them or the bike.
Okay, well, we'll bring that up with the Hughes brothers when they come on the program and see how we get more detail on that. Bar playing against Wally Lewis, Brett Kenny, Cliffy Lyons. We talked earlier about great halves, and sometimes there are lots of them in the competition. Other times it doesn't seem like there is. But both times you guys played, and I'll get to you in a minute, mate. There were a lot of great players around you playing against you. Who were the hardest players to play against, and why?
I'm going to say Brett Kenny. Listen, I think Wally's probably the best player I've seen play football.
Right.
I think Munster's probably up there with him as well.
Yeah,
right now.
He's a Wally-style player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a big man too. But Wally, he could do everything. You know, he could fight. He could kick a ball. He could tackle. But he didn't last long in the game because he started and everything like that. And then he went to radio and then he went to TV. So. They didn't call him the king for nothing. He was a good fighter as well, and everything else that comes with it. But he could do anything, Wally. Anything. If you needed something done in a game, he did it.
Yeah, I suppose there's not a huge number of players who can come up with we all talk about the decisive offensive plays or attacking plays, but players who can come up with defensive plays as well in a game, who can do it at both ends.
Well, it's when Brett Kenny played so whoever was playing good at the time, 5'8", halfback, whatever. So Brett Kenny, if he didn't play 5'8", he played centre.
Yeah, that's
right.
But
every time Brett Kenny played 5'8" for New South Wales won the game. So that's the difference between Wally and Brett Kenny. They're very, very close.
Yeah.
But playing against Brett week in and week out, that makes a difference between Wally and Brett for me.
That's interesting because they talk about Nico Hines, right, and how they fit him into the State of Origin team. And there are other people who go far back saying, hang on a minute, we didn't always do that because we had a lot of great players who didn't play State of Origin. Certainly in halves.
Meninga played second row for Australia.
Yeah.
And G Miles in the centres with Brett Kenny.
Do you remember Mal as a really lanky, skinny kid playing for Queensland?
No, I don't
really
remember
lanky.
anybody skinny.
He was at one stage. If you go back far enough, he looked skinny to me.
12 years old or something?
Maybe. No, he was a bit older than that. But anyway, getting back onto the subject. So, but Bert, of course, we talk about the Parramatta rivalry. Yep. I mean, he was an amazing player to play
Absolutely,
against.
yeah.
And hard to, in that period where we're trying to get those, you came in to the Bulldogs anyway in 84, but in those 3 years that Parramatta won, whether you're playing for West or Canterbury.
He scored 2 tries in
trying to beat
all 3 games, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right, in the grand finals.
Yep.
Yeah. Incredible career. Amazing player. And Cliffy Lyons.
Yeah.
I think he's still going. If he's not, he's only just quit. But
I've seen that. That
incredible.
He's still playing.
Old boys.
Yeah. But one of the most, is he the most deceptive player
We play
you've ever seen? Like,
I would say
the
so.
Legends of the League.
Yes.
We played that a few years ago, and he just moseyed on, similar to Jason Smith.
Yes.
He looks slow,
yeah.
but he's calculating. He's waiting for someone to come out. I've got him, and he'll just step or throw a long pass or a short pass. Like they would just did it at their own speed. Their tempo. Same as Munster. His tempo. He gets across the field, stop, start. So you can't actually whack him because he won't stand still.
Now, for you had a bloke called Joey Johns to deal with, Trent Barrett, Alan Langer. So again, you guys were in eras where you were dealing with really, really amazing players. Who did you find the hardest to deal with, Shifty, in your time? I've only named a few, by the way. I'm not disrespecting anyone else.
All of them, really. Joey was a complete player. Like defensive-wise, running the ball, passing the ball. You just didn't know what he was going to do because he didn't know what he was doing. So he was good to play against.
But that Newcastle team with Joey, they almost grew up together.
Yeah.
From up there. So a lot of them were local kids from the area. And they only brought a couple of kids from the year before that. So
Was Bedsy a knight all the way through?
I think he was. I think he lived up there.
Can't remember him. I'm not sure if he's from originally, but I don't remember him playing for anyone else.
No, neither
Because
did
he was outstanding.
Yeah.
Having him and Joey, they were the best combination going around.
Yep.
That's what I reckon. And that's why they played New South Wales, and I think they won majority.
Yeah.
When you guys went into a game, this might sound like a dumb question, but was it the halfback or the playmaker on the other team that you felt like you had to somehow outsmart on the day, or was your thinking different? Was it the old-fashioned, look, I just got to do what I've got to do and get my team round the park? How was that? Did you spend much time worrying about the opposition?
I think if you're worried about the opposition too much, you actually take the focus off your own game.
Yeah.
So I knew who I was playing, and I was like, I'm going to have to be on my game here. So I'd concentrate on what I was going to do and map it out, what I was going to do early on to get me into the rhythm of the game. And then that's it. I'd forget who I'm playing, and I'm just into my own game. Get the boys around the park, get them where I want them for what kick I wanted and which winger folks he wanted me to attack. And just if he dropped the first one, I'd kick the next 40 at him.
Yeah. You know who their best players are. You get on the field, and if Wally's got the ball or Brett Kenny's got the ball, you know they're one of their good players. So you concentrate on them when they've got the ball, not afterwards or before. So you concentrate on the whole team at the stage.
Okay, you and I know back in the day, Bar, because you had such a high work rate and you were such a busy player. I know a lot of opposition teams ran their big blokes at you. Shifty, you made reference to that as well. They do it to all the halves generally, don't they? But who were the forwards you feared most?
My own forwards, Peter Kelly, Cement, Robbo. Yeah, no,
you did play with some of the toughest blokes in the world.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. When you grow up and get taught to tackle properly, you know how to do it. So I used to go after the ball anyway, just in case they popped it out the back or something like that. So Broman was a very good player, very good ball player, Darryl Broman. Les Boyd got him in the State of Origin game, broke his jaw, and never played Origin again. So I don't know if he played football again after that, because I think he broke his jaw here at Belmore once after that too, I think.
I'm not sure on that. Shifty, the players you hated to have to stand in the line when they were charging at you?
Well, Gordon Tallis wears a size 11.5 because I've seen the bottom of it 100 times. But he ran at me a few times.
What was he like as an opposing player to like after the game and things like that? Because Gordy seems like all the dealings I've had with Gordy, such a nice bloke, but he must have been scary to play against.
Yeah, I played against him as well.
Yeah, you would have too.
He played for the Broncos at that stage.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a maniac.
Yeah. No, he'd just shake your hand. Like, I knew I wasn't going to stop him. I just tried to hold on. Just grab hold of one leg, and I had Sonny Bill on one side or Clydie or someone to come and help me, and that's all I did. So that's what I tried to do. I couldn't... There's that many names coming to me brain at the moment, I can't even spit one out. But all I remember is, Tallis and Webke, they were hard to stop.
Yeah, what a great player, Shane Webke. We could go on, but we don't have enough time. But I'd love to get... we will talk more with Barr about other aspects of his career later on. And Shifty, I hope you'll come back and do the same, mate.
Yeah, 100%.
Before the end of the season, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We'd love to do that because between these two blokes, there is a huge amount of wonderful Canterbury history. We hope you've enjoyed it today. This is Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game with Terry Lamb and Brent Sherwin. We'll do it again next week.